This is Things You Might Not Have Heard, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. And this morning I'm going to present for you the latest in information, current events, pop culture, and just general news stuff. And we're going to give to you great stuff that you told us was great. This is your supplemental go-to source for both mainstream and conventional news stories with an added context. And as I said, you told me what to talk about. You literally tell me what to talk about every single time we do some of these things here. In the queue are 8 stories from the past day, that's yesterday, that you deemed was conversational, and we vetted into this thing here. We'll explain that process in just a bit, plus have some fun stuff that is just for today on this Mardi Gras, on this Fat Tuesday, preparing for Ash Wednesday, but we're going to celebrate that one a little bit differently. So hang on for that one. More information about what we do every single day at our website. This is theconversationproject.com, and email us whenever you feel at the conversation inbox at gmail.com. Just not right now. Let me get through the cast for today. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. We're going to get into the headlines that you deem were conversational and we put into our cast for today. No particular order as they are being presented, but we'll explain how they got into the set in just a bit. So starting off with the first headline for today. And it's one that was kind of interesting because Donald Trump actually had 3 different headlines pop within the last 30 hours that we have to choose from for stories. And this is the one that came up on top. There were 3, and we'll explain the vetting process there, but this is the one that was the highest rated. So we went with this one. We didn't combine any stories and left them all there. Trump endorses Michael Whatley as RNC chair. Lara Trump as co-chair. Now, you may know Michael Whatley. He is someone who's run some Republican ops for him back in the past, who's very much an election denier and down with Trump. You may know Lara Trump as Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, because that's what she is. You may also know that Ronna McDaniel, or Romney McDaniel, as she used to be called, is actually the head of the RNC, and she hasn't actually quit yet or been fired yet. She's still there, but Trump doesn't really like her because she's not doing enough to push him. That's being McDaniel. So he's trying to push in some other folks to take over. That's the story right here. And one of those people, the co-chair, is someone who only has political experience because her father-in-law ran for president 8 years ago. And for some reason, she's on TV talking about it. There you have it. Let's move on to story number 2 for this morning. Headline number 2, at least. It is reading, for those watching the video, there's the party. Yay. There they are. Okay, so Tina Fey fires back at Mean Girls complaints on TikTok, calling them silly Broadway C's, essentially saying that Tina Fey is addressing the criticism by TikTok users of the adaptation of Mean Girls as a musical. Basically saying, why can't we have nice things? Because why are you complaining so much? The underlying frustration with the online backlash is against the creative projects of doing Mean Girls in this new interaction being a musical. Now, people seem to love it. Everybody I talk to who've seen it seems to love it. And this also is akin to what we had lately with the color purple, which the new color purple is actually a over expansion of the musical version that was inspired by the movie, not actually a remake of the movie. And this is what people are getting. They're thinking it's a remake of the Mean Girls for the now times. But when it says Mean Girls, the musical, you kind of should imply in that one. She's basically just bitching at the Broadway folks for bitching at stuff, because Broadway people who are really into Broadway have a lot of opinions, as you may see if you know some of those Broadway folks. There's Tina Fey. Hey, Tina. All right, so story number 3 for this morning. Usher and longtime partner Jenn, I'm not even going to say her last name, his longtime girlfriend, got married after the Super Bowl records show. Records show that Jenn and Usher got a marriage license after performance and apparently got married. There is nothing out there other than someone having records and a lot of people reporting about this. They've been together for about 6 years. And it's just one of those things that, when you're in Vegas and you just have the biggest show in almost ever, minus Michael Jackson and or Prince, maybe Missy Elliott might be third in that case, you get married. You do something great. Do something spontaneous. Now, since they've been together 6 years and have some children together, I don't think this is one that's going to be a blowaway marriage. I think this one's going to have some legs. We'll see if the whole thing actually is true, as they will have to, be public about this eventually. But right now, Usher, or Usher as old heads may say, now no longer on the market. So if you thought there was a chance for you ladies, there is now officially no chance. I'm very, very bad with these pictures today. There's Usher and his girlfriend. Just bad with the pictures. I'm going to see the monitor right here to show me. We're going to do this next one right. Alyssa Milano, labeled Rich Beggar, that's a quote, for attending Super Bowl with son after GoFundMe backlash. There's a picture. Is Alyssa Milano and her son on the Instagram hanging out in Vegas at the Super Bowl. Big old chain for her son. Good looking kid right there. The problem that Alyssa has right now is that she recently had a GoFundMe to help her kid and the kids on her baseball team raise money for a big tournament. Now, that's nothing necessarily new because all kids go around, you have the people selling candy bars and kind of washing your windows and doing all kinds of stuff to raise money for trips. And Milano basically said she was trying to do this to help her son, and the kids go to the trip and do whatever. Although she was famous and had a GoFundMe, and so those things make a lot of money for famous people. And people are like, "Aren't you rich? Why don't you write a check? Why don't you be a sponsor? Why don't you, do something on lower levels?" So she took some backlash from that. Now she's taking her son to the Super Bowl because, remember, she's rich and she can afford tickets to the Super Bowl for her son to see things like that. So the backlash may be a bit warranted. She is, of course, fighting criticism because it was something that she's financially sound so they can do fun stuff as a family, this Super Bowl trip. But the trip about the kids was a totally different thing, and she can't just go out writing checks every time the kids go play baseball. Because you know what? Those travel teams are actually really expensive. So there is a point behind that. But Alyssa Milano, who should have more clout and a bit more money, at least in our perceptions, is not funding all 12 kids on the team, essentially. That's basically where we're at. The next story. Israel says 2 hostages rescued from Gaza in special operation, 128 days after the capture. There are some kind of competing reports about how many hostages are actually left. I believe there's only less than a dozen or so people that are expected to be hostages left out there, but they're in scattered places. This is one where they were rescued from a apartment building complex somewhere in the middle of Gaza. Fernando Simon Marman, who's age 60, and Louis Har, who's age 70, were rescued in a dramatic raid. Now, one of the issues was there were about 20 or so people who died in the raid. So were they all soldiers or were some of them civilians? And of course, there was heavy gunfire things going on. Netanyahu, Mr. Bibi, is having a time of his life being able to flex like this. But at the same time, many people just want him gone. And while there's still a war going on, he says it, not necessarily us, while there's still a war going on, a conflict going on, that gives him a reason to be in power so he can stay in charge and make sure things are happening going forward. You really don't want to change the guy in charge unless there's a real issue what's happening. And the issue may be, why is this happening? We will see how this goes on. Now, yes, the hostages need to be freed, and the Hamas attacks are horrendous. But what we're seeing is a lot of frustration from many other nations, including the biggest ally, us, U.S., in how things are going with this stuff, and essentially how the goal is to destroy Hamas and beat Palestine to a pulp, which in most cases just raises new generations of terrorists after those kids who see their parents get slaughtered for not exactly the best reasons and just overly aggressive deal with that. Let's go to this update to the very sad story that happened over the weekend. Headline is shooter at Joel Osteen's church identified. So here are some of the details we have about the shooter at the church from Sunday. Her name is Janice Morano, although she's gone by a lot of different aliases. Some men, some male, some female, apparently, just to kind of get away with stuff. History of mental illness, and of course, criminal mischief, for lack of a better term, has been locked up in various cases, has dealt with stuff. Was able to obtain this gun essentially scot-free for all practical purposes. The gun itself, the rifle itself, had a sticker on it that was pro-Palestinian, which may say something to this. And the motive still remains completely unclear, but it's just what we're having here. The child that she walked in with was her 7-year-old son, and that boy was shot and is in critical condition right now. Her, Miss Moreno, is deceased in the attack. Hopefully we get more details out of this one. Right now they're doing a lot of celebrating on the shooter, the man who actually was able to kill the woman and going forward, which I guess is great. But he's a police officer, so having his face everywhere, it's not the greatest thing in the world. But right now, this is a story that doesn't have a really good ending yet. We'll hopefully know full details and have closure as we move on with this one. If you didn't think you're going to die of the COVID, you may not want to go up north, as now Alaskapox Alaskapox, a pox on your house of Alaska. An elderly man is the first ever recorded death from this virus. So it's a brand new virus. It's not something that's been going on for a while. And it's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Detected first in humans in Alaska. It's in 2015. Alaskapox is found in small mammals, and a person has just, or people have tend to contract them in very rare diseases for cases. Very vigilant for the symptoms of the virus, highlight a need for awareness and research in newly identified viral diseases. Check out the link for more details on the symptoms and just get to know your Alaskapox better, because poxes are what we deal with. And finally, very quickly, this is one I didn't think we were going to get in here, but it made it. Chris Wallace thinks calling Tucker Carlson a useful idiot is an insult to useful idiots. We're running a bit behind on time, so we're going to basically let you click the link and deal with it. But on the Chris Wallace show this last Saturday, a segment of it was dealing with the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin, and essentially the history lesson that we got that was basically all lies, and the propaganda that was given in the 2-hour sit-down. Chris Wallace gave a big description, kind of a detail of what the useful idiot is. Essentially, back in war times, when people we brought in to sort of talk to a dictator and give them some platform, being called a useful idiot to that dictator. Chris Wallace says calling him a useful idiot, being Tucker Carlson, is actually, an insult to actual useful idiots out there. Your mileage may vary. Let's move on to the errors, apologies, and omissions. And one of those biggest errors, apologies, and omissions is and I don't know if you added the pictures to the video. If you're watching the video, I'm seemingly forgetting to click them, even though I have a monitor that has it right there to remind me. So we're working on that. It's a process. We're getting there. Also, real tired because 2 nights in a row of big time activities and trying to make things going. So we'll have a really dragging Thursday after our Ash Wednesday tomorrow. That's another big day as well. And today, a lot of big stuff's going on. But the actual omitted story we didn't talk about today, something we didn't have time for, which is really interesting, is the anti-CPAC with Republican Adam Kinzinger and former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson coming together to bring up a summit that's going to be not the Conservative Political Action Conference, the CPAC conference. That's going to be something to combat that one, because CPAC has got a whole lot of crazy these days. So they want something that's a bit more actually sane and conservative, where ideas can be shared and not just people, frowning over Donald Trump, because that's all that's happening these days. Now, let's get to our teaser story. Let's get back into sort of the groove of things. And we're going to try to do this by talking about our teaser story. This is where we talk about the Conversation Project and how we do things around here, how we got the stories we talked about. The 8 stories we presented for you today were the 8 of the top 15 stories of yesterday. There were about 33 actual full stories in the day, and 3 of them were Donald Trump. We took the top 15 per your engagement and gave 8 of them to you here in the presentation. You go to our feeds, and it's very simple. Go to our feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/ThisIsAConversationProject and Twitter.com/TH_conversation. And you just engage in the stories as they come up in the feeds, or as you scroll through them all day long. We have 24 hours a day to get to them. Like them, love them, hate them, share them. Literally click the engagement button that you want to and share and read and talk about, folks. And the more engagement story gets, the better chance we have of talking about this one. It will be talking about this one in particular. Mexico overtakes China as the leading source of goods imported by U.S. So for some reason, made in Mexico is now making a big jump in things going on. And while things seem like they're tragic with all the people from South America coming through the border at Mexico to come here, seems like Mexico's doing pretty well in the money game. We'll see exactly how that works out coming forward. And we'll talk more about it deeper in the details if you want to go deeper into the story. This is on you. So you let me know if this is a story we're talking about tomorrow, being Wednesday, by just engaging in it at our feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Now, let's go to our spotlight sponsor for today, and it is Blinkist. The Blinkist app is a very cool app that will help you get caught up on every single book you've never read. Well, not every single book. I mean, there are limits. But the books that you want to get into, the nonfiction books and the autobiographies that you think that you want to read, but they're really long, we've taken away that excuse for you. Take a 4-hour autobiography that would take that much time to read over a course of a couple of days, or listen to in audiobook form. The Blinkist app allows you to listen to it or read it in what they call blinks. They take the main pieces of the books, the main details, and put them into small bite-sized chunks. And you can basically take a 4-hour book and read it in 15 minutes. It's that simple. I use the Blinkist app every morning on the way to work and every evening as I go to bed to listen to at least 2 books a day as I have time. It makes me a little smarter, know a little bit more, and kind of get into things. And there's a wide variety of genres to get into. So it can be something that you really love or something you really didn't think you'd know about, but since it's only 15 minutes, get a quick learning in. And Blinkist Spaces allows you to share the app and the sounds and the voices and the readings of the books with people who don't have the app. And you can talk about it there as well. Go to our website. This is a conversationproject.com/Blinkist. This is a conversationproject.com/Blinkist. This is our affiliate link, so we get a commission if you install the app today, but check it out. You will fall in love with it and be caught up so quickly on all those books that you've been meaning to get to. Even the ones that are like on your shelf someplace. It's like, I need to read that. I bought it, should read it. Blinkist can help you out with that. The Conversation Project lives online at thisisaconversationproject.com. That is our hit website. That is our home. That's where things are stored, if you will. But this is February, so we have to go through a whole long list of things to talk about because we're looking for pledges. We're trying to get more people into the queue. We need to get another $200 of recurring income every single month, and there are ways you can help us out with that, plus the general ways to just show us love. So let me put up the big slide graphic for those watching the video, and you can read along with me. The website, as I said, this is a conversationproject.com, facebook.com/th_conversation. I'm sorry, it's facebook.com, just mixed that up completely. Facebook.com/this is a conversation project, and twitter.com or x.com/th_conversation. Those are our feeds. Facebook and Twitter allow us to share what news stories we think are relevant to you guys, and you tell us exactly which ones by engaging the feeds there. You can follow us on TikTok and on YouTube under the Conversation Project. Look for our podcast at our website. There are links for all the podcasts where you can find us, or just look for the podcast we have on your podcatcher. And you can subscribe, which is basically being a partner, helping us out by directly contributing to us by going to buymeacoffee.com/jclevelandpayne or cash apping us or Venmoing us at jclevelandpayne. All these details are at the website. This is a conversationproject.com in some shape, form, or manner. We do this every February to kind of, garner up a little bit of juice, if you will, and literally juice when we're trying to get more people to help us fund this thing. We keep wanting to add more people, more work, more equipment. Now, all the folks who've been following me in my personal endeavors, taking a little bit of stress off of some of that stuff. So if you're into it, consider being a partner. If you're don't see this as a long-term thing, and I really need that cough button, I consider quick Cash App and Venmo donation. If you don't have the means, go to the feeds and go to the email and just engage with us and keep us going with things going on, and we'll figure it out. That's how we want things going around here. Somehow we've caught up with time and we're not too far over. So let's get into the fun stuff and get out of here for the day and get the big wrap for the day. The fun stuff happens every single weekday morning here on the Conversation Project as we give you a couple things to step out with. And fun stuff always begins with birthdays, the funnest of the fun stuff. You may not think this, you may not believe this, but one of my first pre-celebrity crushes was Stockard Channing, who is 80 years old today. Now, why is that? Because Grease is a big movie from folks in my generation, and we watched it, from 7, 8 years old all the way through teenage years. True story. We had Grease on tape, on videotape back in the day in high school. I had a friend who just came over every other day essentially and watched it because I had the tape in my house. Didn't just say, hey, can I borrow the tape? Just came over and watched it in my house. We also had pretty good snacks, so that kind of helped out as well. Stockard Channing, who's 80 years old today, she was 33, I believe, when she played Rizzo in Grease, although Olivia Newton-John wasn't too far behind at 29 years old, the old teenagers in the show. Now, this was essentially the first time we got exposed to why is this old person playing a teenager. Of course, we know about 29-year-old, we know about 29-year-old Andrea, who's actually 15. I just lost the page. Check that out. Totally losing context there. 29-year-old Gabrielle Carteris, who was playing 15-year-old Andrea on 90210 back in the 90s. But, back in the 70s, Stockard Channing had her beat. Very, very long intro to say happy birthday, Stockard Channing. We love you. Thank you so much for sticking around and doing great things till this day at 80 years old. Also, birthday wishes to Mike Krzyzewski, who is almost there, 77, and Mena Suvari, who is also kind of a part of our Gen X sort of landscape. 45 years old on the day today. Talking about history, our history lesson for today goes to 2000. And in the year 2000, the last original Peanuts comic strip appeared in newspapers the day after Charles Schulz died, of course. That very sad day. The Peanut story is a big story because while people just sort of believed they were just sort of characters that sort of represented us, they were actually more or less the psyche pieces of Charles Schulz, essentially how he dealt with the world, dealing with all these different characters who were young children, but had these oversized attitudes and these things that where they work things out. And it was basically therapy for him that turned into therapy for us. And we miss things like the Peanuts in our lives. And we're celebrating Pancake Day today. Now, why is it Pancake Day and why is it not so much Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras? Technically, it's the same thing because Mardi Gras, the day before Lent, where you have to give up all the richness and fatness of foods as you are essentially in your repentant stage preparing for Easter, people had eggs, people had flour, people had sugar. And so what do they do? Pancakes. Pancakes. The day before Lent, or Mardi Gras for folks who are celebrating Carnival type things, was the day you had to eat all the food in the fridge or whatever. So pancakes were all the rage. Because of that, IHOP is having Pancake Day. So get yourself some free pancakes, I think, today. But you'll have to wait in line for that one. Pancakes are a big deal. So make yourself some pancakes. Go buy some frozen pancakes if you're into it. But remember, the reason behind the day, although pancakes are wonderful, it's really the day to clear the fridge and clear the food of all the things that would go bad in your days running up to Lent or running up till Easter before your time of Lent. Did you know that? Pancake Day came about as a part of a religious celebration. So if you're a pancake lover and not religious, I guess they snuck it in there. Today is Tuesday, February the 13th, 2024. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne, and I am glad to be a part of your life with this little news thing here and other news things we provide for you via the Conversation Project. Check out our website. This is theconversationproject.com for all the details and where you can find us all over the place. Consider being a sponsor. Consider being a partner. Consider checking out some more of our sponsors at our website. And if that's not in the cards, just keep up on the feeds and the email so we know what's going on, so we know what to do for you. Stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task for all the great things you're here to do. Love you. Mean it. I got a big Tuesday going on, not so much fat, but just kind of long, if you get what I mean, and kind of a long digging week as well. So hopefully you're going to enjoy your Mardi Gras. Wear some beads. Don't do anything funny to get them. Find a king cake or just eat basically a cinnamon donut, same thing, and enjoy yourselves. And we'll talk some Lent tomorrow. We'll definitely talk Lent tomorrow, but what other stories do we have? You find what's in there. You put them in the queue. You tell me what we're going to talk about, and we will have it because you put the words in my mouth. Let's do this tomorrow. Words in my mouth by you. As dirty as that sounds, it is what is going to happen again tomorrow.